Hello my loves and welcome back to a new video. My name is Jade Shinya and I help people reclaim back their power physically, mentally and spiritually. Now today we're going to be covering quite a lot about the menstrual cycle and how to do menstrual cycle syncing, what men and women need to know about the menstrual cycle, how massively it impacts your personality, your actions, how the changes in your hormones affect how you behave and feel and act. And how really the huge ignorance over this causes huge problems within women's day-to-day lives and also relationships. And then we're going to go more into the spiritual side of things and reveal what it actually means if you are either a red witch, which means you bleed on a full moon, or if you're a white witch and you sync to a new moon and you bleed on new moons and what that means for you. So the first part, I'll get into the more physical side of things and the mental side of things, where it comes to really understanding how you have basically 4 different personalities based on which cycle, which phase of the cycle that you're on. So it's basically 4 phases that each woman goes through, roughly on a 28, sometimes longer, day cycle. But in general, most women normally have around a 28-day cycle. This can be less, sometimes it's 24, or sometimes it can switch and change. Sometimes it can even be like 30, 32 or more. But in average, it should be around 28 days. So number 1, the first day is when you start bleeding. That's day 1 of your menstrual cycle. So the first phase is obviously menstruation. So that's when you're bleeding. That normally lasts around, 1 to 3, 5, sometimes 7 days. So of course, every woman is different. And then the second phase is the follicular phase. And this is basically around day 6 to 14. Again, it depends on how long your menstruation cycle is. But on day 14, normally it's 2 weeks after you start bleeding. That's when you hit the third phase, which is the ovulation. And this is when you basically release an egg. And then this lasts for a few days, roughly 5 to 6 days. But you'll release an egg normally on day 14. Again, it depends how long your menstruation is, but it's normally around 2 weeks after you start bleeding. And this is normally when a woman, so phases 2 and 3 is when a woman is feeling her best. This is when she'll have more energy. Her sex drive will also be higher. So her sex drive will be at its highest when you've released an egg. So you'll have that kind of 5-day window of when you're feeling more sort of frisky. And this is when, because obviously you're fertile. So this is when you're your most fertile, well, when you're only fertile, because most women are ignorant to the fact that you're only fertile for about 5 to 6 days a month. You can't get pregnant all the time. So, this is why it's important to track and actually understand what your body is doing. But when you're going through this phase, this is when you're feeling your most energetic, most productive. This is when even manifestation is at its highest. So if you're doing spell work or manifestation, you want to be doing it around when you're ovulating. That's a very powerful time to be doing it. This is when you want to be going on dates or having date nights with your husband or boyfriend, or, doing fun activities. So around that sort of 2-week window after you've finished bleeding, that's when you're going to be feeling your best. And sometimes it doesn't even last for 2 weeks. Unfortunately, it can be about 10 days. And that's when you'll have loads of energy. If you're in a gym, this is when you'll be feeling your strongest. This is when you'll be hitting like your PRs, your best reps. This is when you'll be able to do the most, basically, because your testosterone will also have an increase. But after you've released an egg, so after ovulation is finished, and then you hit the 4th phase, that's when you go into the luteal phase. And this is the worst time for a woman. And I hate this time of my menstrual cycle, because this is when, the week before your period, sometimes it can be longer, depending. So about 7 to 10 days before you're due on. This is when you'll start to feel tired. This is when you'll get really depressed, grouchy. Your mood will have a big crash. This is when you'll feel weaker, even in the gym. This is when you'll get hungrier, because this is when you're basically infertile. And this is like when your body's preparing you to have your next bleed. So this is when you'll even break out, of your skin. You'll feel, even your face will look less symmetrical. Like, it's insane how much your physical body will actually change. So women literally shapeshift depending on your cycle, what phase you're on. So you'll look your most beautiful when you're fertile. You'll even be releasing pheromones that like attract a mate, that so men will be more drawn to you. You'll be your most attractive at this time. And then when you're in your infertile phase, this is when you'll start to feel shit. You'll appear less attractive. You'll, and you'll feel bloated, uncomfortable, grouchy. So, and you'll be way more agitated and stressed. So your stress tolerance will be really low. So this is when it's like, you know, anything can like trigger you. Anything can, you know, be activated in a negative way. And some women suffer with something called PMDD, which I actually did do a video on. So that is an even more severe form of PMS, when you get even really manically depressed, suicidal. Your body will have even more intense physical symptoms, even like really bad swollen boobs, soreness, whole body aches. You know, again, it depends. And then some women, of course, suffer from PCOS, endometriosis. So then it's even more escalated. The pain is even more severe. So it really does depend on, you know, each woman is different. Some will have more severe symptoms, some will be more less. So, but with all women, every single woman follows this cycle. And it's so important that men track as well their cycle. Because if you have a husband or partner, or even if you're younger and you're living with like your father or have brothers around you, it's so important that men and women are not ignorant of their cycle. Because if you're like, you know, on your luteal phase, and then your partner or something is like stressing you out, or annoying you, or they're trying to start an argument, you know, they're not being very considerate, they're not being caring, they're not being loving, they're not, you know, holding space for you, they're not aware, things can escalate in a massively bad way. And then arguments are way more prevalent at this time, breakups are way more common at this time. So, and then the man won't know, and then he'll feel like, fuck, what's got into her? You know, it can be, it's very, it's a simple thing to be aware of, but the ignorance of it can be dire. It can cause dire consequences when a woman and a man are ignorant of her cycle, because something small can become a huge problem, can become a huge, you know, escalate into a massive argument, just because a woman is like having a huge crash within her hormones. Her estrogen is like massively dropped. So she's very agitated, she's really emotional, you know, any small thing will like trigger her. And this is why with women, you need to understand like how detrimental it can be if you're in a toxic relationship and have a partner that's completely ignorant of this or doesn't care. You know, if you have a man that doesn't give a shit about your cycle, he's not more nurturing, more soft, more careful around you when you're on your luteal and your menstruation phase, if he really doesn't give a shit about it, if you are aware of it and you're trying to educate him and you pre-warn him, you're like, look, I'm on this phase, I'm on my luteal week, so please, you know, just give me space, you know, be more caring, this is what I need from you. You know, it's just common sense and maturity. It's emotional intelligence, it's emotional maturity, and of course it's love. You know, if you actually care and love your woman, you know, if your partner is supposed to care and love you, he'll be considerate of what you're going through, you know, because men, they'll never understand, you know, the severe highs and lows of what it actually is to be a woman. And this is why, you know, the whole toxic woke agenda makes this even worse, because they're trying to just eradicate, you know, the differences that genders go through. But in reality, in physical reality, biological women go through this every single month. And men don't. It doesn't matter if you identify as a woman, you do not go through this. It doesn't matter if you're on even hormone replacer blockers or whatever, you still do not go through this. It's, you know, such an important thing that is acknowledged and heard and addressed, because women, we have such severe highs and lows. And it's something that we're just biologically made to do, you know, because your body is sacred. You literally have a portal to the spirit world to bring in life. You know, this is why we had matriarchal tribes and societies in ancient times who worshipped women as goddesses, because they acknowledged this gift. They acknowledged the sacredness and the power of it. So they were, you know, attuned and helped women live their lives based around their cycle. It's important that, you know, for a woman, whether you're single or not, or in a partnership, you should cycle sync. You should base your life around your cycle, so you know and you're aware of what's to come. It will massively benefit you, even in fitness, in like productivity, in your goals. It's even if you're dating, or you want to go out, or you want to travel, you know, you want to plan things, you know, you want to be doing those things when you're feeling your best, not when you're supposed to be resting. So it's not just, you know, most people are very ignorant, and they only think that, you know, oh, a woman is just down and grumpy and in pain only during the days that she's bleeding, which is so not true. And even I was ignorant to this for years. I didn't even know this. I didn't understand why I was feeling my worst before I was bleeding. I just thought, oh, a woman, it just feels grumpy and tired when she's on her periods, but that's not the case at all. If anything, your mind and your energy starts to improve on the 3rd day onwards. After you know, when you start bleeding, normally you'll feel very withdrawn and tired, you know, for like the first 2-3 days, and then after that you'll start to feel better. But mentally, I know I feel my worst when I'm on my luteal phase. When I start bleeding, it's like, oh, a relief. Mentally, I start to feel better, and then it just gets better and better, you know, the less I start to bleed. So it's such an important thing for men and women to be aware of, to acknowledge, not to dismiss. And it shouldn't be seen as taboo. You know, it's such a immature perspective that many people have, and it just shows how we do live in a very toxic patriarchal society, because this is not spoken of, this is not even thought of in normal day-to-day things. And even with, you know, women's sports, even like if you're an athlete, a female athlete, this will massively impact you. You know, this can be like the difference between winning or losing, you know, a competition or a gold medal. Because it's like, if you have the unfortunate event of like, oh, a competition is, you know, falling on your luteal week or your menstruation week, you know, it's highly likely that you won't be your best. You won't be able to compete at your best. Obviously, this can't be avoided, but then when we look at, you know, them allowing trans women into female sports, it's even more unfair. You know, female sports is unfair as it is, because you could be a woman on your luteal phase, where your strength is massively decreased, and you could be competing with a woman who's on her better part of her phase, where she's got more testosterone, where she's feeling more strong, her best. So obviously you're going to lose to her. You know, it's more likely. So it's hard enough as it is for a woman to compete, let alone competing against men. You know what I'm saying? So it's such a stupid, foolish thing that needs to be grounded in truth. It needs to be acknowledged, and this toxic wokeness doesn't help it. So we need to acknowledge biological truth. We need to stop being toxic. Men, you need to stop being ignorant and actually acknowledge what's going on with your woman or your daughter or your wife or whatever. Even if you're a man and you have like female employees, you should be aware of what's going on with them. So, you know, it's very important that this is known. And women, you need to not be ignorant of it. You need to start tracking your cycle. You need to do cycle syncing so you can be aware of how you're feeling. So if you start randomly feeling like utter shit, you're depressed, you're suicidal, you're questioning everything about life, yeah, you're probably on your luteal phase. You'll have those moments of just like, oh my God, like my life is terrible. And then as soon as you start bleeding, you're like, oh, actually, it's not too bad. So, you know, trust me, I've been there. And then it's like, oh, I was just, you know, on my luteal phase. It's such an important thing to acknowledge, but unfortunately, because we live in a hustle culture society as well, we live on basically a patriarchal routine that doesn't fit matriarchal needs. It makes it even more difficult for women. Women are not built to be getting up early every single morning and then working a full day and then go, you know, doing the same thing every single day. we're not built to be productive and energized every single day like a man is. You know, a man will have his testosterone boost every single day. Women don't. We don't. We have that once a month, you know, for a few days, and then it goes. So it's extremely inconsiderate and unfair, really, to be forcing women into trying to fit a society that's built around men and not women at all. And then people wonder why women are developing things like PCOS, endometriosis, all these health problems, you know, female health problems. People wonder why women are becoming more masculine, because when you are to get more into the spiritual side of things now, when you're in your masculine energy for too long, you will develop health problems. You will develop physical symptoms like endometriosis and PCOS and whatever, and hormonal imbalances, because you're stressed the fuck out. You're not living in tune with your cycle. You're not living within being able to be in tune with your feminine energy. And this is why it's prevalent for you to track your cycle, so you can try your best to sync your life around it, so your nervous system can heal, so it can calm down, so you can rest when you need to, so you can have better, more healthy relationships. It's just self-awareness, and this is what will empower you massively. So to get more into the spiritual side of things, like I said, if a woman is forced to be in her masculine energy, it can of course cause physical problems. So this is why cycle syncing your life is really important. If you intuitively feel that you're too much in your masculine energy and you're trying to like eat healthy, but you're still having problems, you're still having these complications, then look at your relationships, look at your career, you know, look at things, your lifestyle. Is it highly stressful? Is it forcing you to be in your masculine energy? And if it is, then it's a high probability that that's what's linking you to being too masculine and causing physical problems. Or look at your diet. You know, is it really heavy in junk food? Are you drinking? Are you smoking? You know, you need to look at your physical body, your mental body, and your spiritual body. Now, to get more into the spiritual side of things, women, especially when you're spiritually in tune, you will sync up to the moon. So when you're in your prime, and you know you're heavily like have a strong connection to the spirit world, or you're a natural born witch, you'll normally notice that you're bleeding on a full moon or a new moon. And there is in between parts as well. I think it's called pink and purple, but I'm going to be focused more on a full moon and new moon bleeding. So a full moon bleed is called basically a red witch. So these are more rare. And if you are a full moon bleeder, this is a really powerful sign that you are being either called to or you are embodying your dark feminine energy. So if you're a full moon bleeder, a red witch, this is basically you being asked to step into that leadership role. You're being asked to basically be more in tune with your dark feminine energy. I did do a whole video on activating your dark feminine, so go check that out to learn more about that. But basically, red witches are normally very psychic, shamans, powerful healers, but more in a kind of fierce and intense way. You're not meant to be soft and humble. You're meant to be bold and expressive and kind of wild. You're meant to be seen. You're meant to be heard. You're meant to be really stepped into that powerful, fierce, dark, feminine energy. Also being more called to basically detach from people more, be more independent, be more self-serving, be less of a people pleaser. So this is kind of stepping more into that energy because you're being caused for something. And it's very intense. Like this energy is more rare and very intense. It can also be a sign that for too long you have been a people pleaser. So now you're being asked to step more into this intense kind of detached era, entering your villain era, but in a positive way. In a way that's going to help you be empowered. It's kind of like a phoenix energy of rebirth, and you really stepping into that darker side, but in a positive way. So if you started sinking to full moons, this is a really strong sign that you're being called to heal yourself. You're being called to do shadow work. You're being called to like really go within and also be externally bold, powerful, be that leader. You're meant to be heard and you're meant to be seen. So it's a very intense energy, and I'll probably dedicate a whole video in the future to this, as it's, you know, a lot deeper. But it's basically a huge sign that you're meant to be activating your dark feminine energy, or you already are, or you've gone through some sort of turbulent phase of your life and now you're being like called to heal yourself, to have that rebirth, to really step into your power, to really embody that energy. It's a very intense energy because you're also ovulating on a new moon. So if you're bleeding on a full moon, that means you're releasing your egg on a new moon, which is all about, you know, manifestation and creativity. So it's a very powerful cycle to have. You know, it's very intense, and this energy can be difficult to manage because, of course, when we have a full moon, it amplifies everything within us. So it's a really intense, powerful energy, and one that takes kind of like getting used to a bit. I used to be a new moon bleeder, and now I've recently started to become a more dominant full moon bleeder. However, you can change, because sometimes I would be a new moon bleeder for the warmer months, and then as soon as Halloween would come and autumn, I would sink to a full moon bleed, and then I'll have that throughout autumn and winter. So sometimes you can change and switch. It really depends on what your energy is being caused to, what you're going through in your life. So this can be a good indication to reveal to you what you need to embody, what you need to like heal. So I noticed when I was being called to my dark feminine energy, I naturally started to sink to a full moon bleed after being more of a dominant new moon bleeder. But now I've been massively sinking to a full moon consistently for quite some time, which at first I didn't particularly like because it is way more intense. However, now it's like I've embodied it, and then it gets more and more easy to manage and control. So with a new moon bleed, new moon is more to do with being nurturing. It's embodying like the mother, the healer sort of type energy. So basically a new moon bleeders is called a white witch. So if you bleed on a new moon, you are a white witch instead of a red witch. So with white witchery, it's basically you are embodying the energy, or being called to embody the energy of the divine feminine. So this is about being more softer. This is about tapping into your divine feminine energy and being more in that kind of flow and surrender and that soft sort of energy. So if you're a woman that was too masculine for a while, you may now start to sink with a new moon bleed. And this happened with me, where I was too much of my masculine for quite some time, and then I started sinking to a new moon when I was on my path of embodying my divine feminine energy for the first time in my life. So this is more about tuning into that energy, less promiscuous energy, less sexual, more about maturity, nurturing, more about unity as well. So this is like the opposite of the dark feminine energy, which is more sensual, powerful, intense, leadership, boundaries, and you know, protecting oneself in an empowered way. But with the divine feminine, it's more about being softer, nurturing, more motherly. You know, the divine feminine is more about opening your heart. It's more about trusting other people, letting people in, where the dark feminine is more about being, you know, boundaries. Maybe you were too open, so now it's more about protecting oneself and being more discerning, where the divine feminine is more about being softer, opening yourself, less guardedness, trusting more. So it's basically, yeah, about surrendering, tapping into that softer side of femininity. So it's like the light feminine instead of the dark feminine. Because then, of course, you release your egg on a full moon when you bleed on a new moon. So again, it's still a powerful cycle to have, but it's less intense, if that makes sense. However, the good thing with a new moon bleed, like I've said in other videos, is it's a good time to do manifestation spells, because you can, of course, use your menstrual blood on a new moon to then manifest something for a full moon. So, you know, both has its pros and cons. But with the new moon, so with a full moon bleed, red witches, it is known, you know, within occultism, it is more rare, more intense, more fierce. because it's basically like you're being called to embody a very powerful energy for some sort of leadership role. So it can be, yeah, kind of tricky to manage. But it's normally a big sign that you need to step into that, you know, dark feminine energy. So what moon phase do you bleed on? You know, let me know in the comments below. I also do have a Christmas winter sale on my one-to-one reading. So if you are interested in that, if you want to know more, I do help people massively with shadow work. So if you do have any problems, especially in regards to your feminine energy or even physical body, etc., I do help most of my clients basically face their inner shadow. A big part of my work, you know, the main bulk of it is spiritual therapy and basically analyzing and bringing to the surface what your blockages are, the catalyst to your shadows, and then how to overcome that and how to heal that. So if you're having any sort of relationship issues, career issues, entity issues, or you really want to take it seriously, how to start your own shadow work and learn how to truly transform and transmute dark energy to positive energy, so you can transform and alchemize your life to something, you know, from pain to power, then please contact me. I do have a sale on, so I have currently 20% off the usual price, which will last throughout December. So if you're interested in that, then please contact me down below, where you can book in a slot instantly and I'll be more than happy to help you. If you want to see more exclusive content, I do have a Patreon where I post more sort of dark occultic videos that I can't show here on YouTube. So more conspiracies, darker truths being exposed. So if you want to gain instant access to all my content on Patreon, then please sign up for the full access option, where you pay a monthly subscription that you can cancel anytime. I also do monthly Q&A videos on there, and you also have direct messaging with me. So every single month I'll be able to answer your questions, which is always popular with my Patreons. So if you're interested in that, that's also linked down below. Until next time, my loves, I'm sending you so much love, so much light. Himsa.